Hello everyone, my name is Doobie Scoots, and thanks for joining me on my first ever video. Like most of you that will be watching this, I am a huge fan of Magic the Gathering. I've been playing and collecting cards for approximately 20 years now. Out of all the formats, Commander happens to be my favorite, and I thought I would share with all of you some of my builds. Today, I'd like to present to you Breya, the Etherium Shaper. She is a 4-drop, 1 white, 1 blue, 1 black, 1 red, 4/4 human artifact creature. When she enters the battlefield, you create 2 1/1 flying Thopters, and she also has another ability where you can pay 2 mana, sacrifice 2 artifacts, and you can deal 3 damage to a player, or give a creature a -4/-4 until end of turn, or gain 5 life. The deck focuses on enter the battlefield effects with a blinking or flicker sub-theme. As I go through this list and others in the future, if you see an altered art proxy or two, I do own the original copy of the card. It's just that some of my local Magic friends like to make beautiful alters of cards, and it's nice kind of spicing up the deck every now and again. So without further ado, let's get into the deck. First, we will start off with the Mana Rocks. I have Mana Crypt, an Arcane Signet, Chromatic Lantern, Izzet Signet, Azorius Signet, Orzhov Signet, a Boros Signet, Sol Ring, ever popular, and a Mox Opal. I run a Smothering Tithe, and I consider this ramp, it is Treasure Nabber. He likes to steal people's artifact ramp themselves, so yeah, I figured he's a good mana ramp. Next, we get into the tutors. Imperial Recruiter. When he enters the battlefield, you get to search your library for a creature card with power 2 or less, reveal it, and put it into your hand. He is also a very good card to flicker. We have Arkham Daxon. Whenever you tap him and you can sacrifice an artifact creature, being Thopters in this case, you can search your library for a non-creature artifact and put it directly into play. Fabricate. Look through your library for an artifact. Demonic Tutor. Look through your library for any card. Diabolic Tutor. Look through your library for any card. Whir of Invention. Helps you search for an artifact card. And an Enlightened Tutor to go search for an artifact or enchantment. Now we're going to get into some protective spells. I run Teferi's Protection. It lets you pretty much phase out and all your permanents. This card also keeps your tokens into play. Eerie Interlude, to protect your creatures, and it also flickers them back into the battlefield to abuse their enter the battlefield effects. I also run Flawless Maneuver. It is a free casting cost to make your creatures indestructible. Running Mycosynth Lattice to turn everything into artifacts. Darksteel Forge to turn all of your artifacts indestructible. A Nevinril's Disc. It also synergizes with the Mycosynth and the Darksteel Forge. All of your stuff will remain, and you destroy your opponent's board. We are also running a Sharding Sphinx. It helps produce a lot of Thopters. Phyrexian Metamorph. You can copy any of your enter the battlefield creatures, and also makes it an artifact as well. Now we're going to start getting into the game closing cards that help out a lot. Mechanized Production. You enchant it to an artifact you control, and at the beginning of your upkeep, you create a token that's a copy of that enchanted artifact. Then if you control 8 or more artifacts with the same name, you win the game. So you could put this on a Soul Ring and get 8 Thopters with Breya, and you win the game. Run a Cranial Plating, so the equipped creature will get 1/0 for each artifact you control, and you can also attach this for 2 black at instant speed. You can swing in with a lot of Thopters, and then instantly put this Cranial Plating on an artifact or one of your Thopters that has not been blocked and deal heavy damage. We run a Time Sieve, so that way you can sacrifice 5 of your Thopters that you create, and you can go ahead and take an extra turn. This card by itself can win you the game. We run a Marionette Master. It has Fabricate 3, so when it enters the battlefield, you can put 3 1/1 counters on it, or create 3 colorless servo artifact creatures. Whenever an artifact you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, target opponent loses life equal to Marionette Master's power. So if Marionette Master happens to be big, you can sacrifice your Thopters with Breya and deal heavy damage to someone. Marionette Master is also really good when you attach Cranial Plating to it. Perforos, God of the Forge. As you're creating Thopters, things entering the battlefield, you can deal 2 damage to each opponent. It's a very powerful card. We run Tezzeret, Master of the Bridge. If you happen to get Microsynth out, for example, this card can end the game. Creatures and Planeswalker spells, you have Affinity for artifacts. +2 is the big one here. It deals X damage to each opponent, where X is the number of artifacts you control, and you gain X life. You can also -3 to return an artifact from your graveyard to your hand. And -8, exile the top 10 cards of your library for all artifacts cards among them into the battlefield. Mainly, this card is used for its +2. We run a Vandal Blast. That also synergizes real good with Microsynth Lattice. It keeps your board around and destroys everyone else's board. We run a Mirror Entity. It is used for its X, obviously. Until end of turn, creatures you control have base power and toughness XX and gain all creature types. We run a Ruinous Ultimatum to destroy all non-land permanents your opponents control. We run a Cyclonic Rift. I don't believe this one needs any introduction. We run a Sword of the Meek. So equipped creature gets 1/2, and whenever a 1/1 creature comes into play under your control, you may return Sword of the Meek from the graveyard to play and then attach it to that creature. This combos with Thopter Foundry. You can sacrifice your Sword of the Meek, create a 1/1, and you can put Sword of the Meek back onto that Thopter. And with Urza, the Lord High Artificer, it is an infinite type combo where you can tap that for mana, sack it, get a Thopter, rinse and repeat. Urza also has a enter the battlefield effect where you can create a 0/0 colorless construct artifact creature token, and it gets 1/1 for each artifact you control. Not only that, it's 5 is shuffle your library, exile the top card. Until the end of turn, you may play that card without paying its mana cost. Pretty powerful ability. We run a Deadeye Navigator. So it has Soul Bond. You can put that in the battlefield and attach it with Breya. You can attach it with any of the enter the battlefield creatures you have. And you can pay just a blue and 1, and you will continuously flicker that creature. Peregrine Drake, of course, combos with Deadeye Navigator, and you will have infinite mana. Also run an Ashen Rider. When it enters the battlefield or dies, you can exile a target permanent. Very good to help get rid of indestructible creatures. I run a Maverick Thopterist. It kind of does the same thing Breya does. When it enters the battlefield, you get 2 flying Thopter artifact creatures. And Whirler Rogue also creates 2 colorless Thopter artifact creatures, and it also helps that you can tap 2 untapped artifacts and you can make a creature unblockable. Cloud Blazer enters the battlefield, you gain 2 life and draw 2 cards. And we run Karmic Guide. So whenever you flicker that, if you have some creatures in your graveyard, you can get them back onto the battlefield. Run Tezzeret, the Artifice Master. You can +1 to create a 1/1 colorless Thopter, or you can 0 him out to draw a card, and normally you have a lot of artifacts, so you will draw 2 cards. The -9, the beginning of your end step, you get to search library for any permanent and put it on the battlefield. You run Kindred Discovery. When it enters the battlefield, you choose a creature type, and obviously that's going to be Thopters. Whenever a Thopter you control enters the battlefield or attacks, you get to draw cards. Run a Shimmer Dragon, mainly used to tap 2 untapped artifacts you control to draw a card. Run Consecrated Sphinx. Whenever an opponent draws a card, you get to draw 2 cards. And we run Pedium. Artifacts you control have hexproof, and at the beginning of your upkeep, if you control the artifact with the highest converted mana cost or tied for the highest, you get to draw a card. Run Gift of Immortality. I like to put this card on Breya, so if she was to die, you can return Breya to the battlefield and keep getting more Thopters. You can also sacrifice herself with her own ability and net yourself 1 Thopter. Run Aetherios, the Shroud Veil. Similar to Gift of Immortality, you can give Breya or any of your enter the battlefield creatures a coin counter, and if they die or exile, they will come back into the battlefield. Run a Panharmonicon. So anything entering the battlefield will cause that ability to trigger twice. And we run an Anointed Possession. So if you bring Breya into the battlefield, you will get 4 Thopters instead of just 2. As this section here, we're going to have our flicker effects, how we can get the blinks going. So mainly her -1 is exile another permanent you control, and it will come back into the battlefield. Soul Herder is beginning of your end step. You can exile another target creature and then return it to the battlefield. Miss Metal Witch, pay some mana, exile a creature, and it'll come back at the next end step. That's the Deep Dweller. At the end step, you can exile another creature and bring it back into the battlefield. Avenger the Sojourner. Exile a permanent you own and return it to the battlefield under your control at the next end step. This also has a nice -1 of creatures are unblockable this turn. And Conjurer's Closet, same thing. Beginning of your end step, exile a creature you control and return the card to the battlefield. Now we're going to get into the land base. Keep in mind that this land base is very expensive. Like I said, I have been playing this game a while and done a lot of trading and a lot of buying. But you can always run a budgeted version of the lands. So here we go. Run 2 islands, 1 mountain, a plains. We have 2 swamps. We have the Trilands, Arcane Sanctum, Crumbling Necropolis, Mystic Monastery. We're getting into the fetch lands. Run Polluted Delta, Marsh Flats, Bloodstained Mire, an Arid Mesa, a Flooded Strand, and Scalding Tarn. We have a Badlands, a volcanic island, plateau, tundra, underground sea, scrubland, and then we have some artifact lands, the Great Furnace, Seat of the Synod, an Ancient Den, Vault of Whispers. Then we have a Steam Vents, Hollowed Fountain, Watery Grave, Sunbaked Canyon, and if you don't need the mana, you can always sacrifice it to draw a card. Same for the Fiery Islet. And we have a Savai Triome, Fabled Passage, Prismatic Vista, Port Town, Fetid Heath, Command Tower, Reliquary Tower, and finally an Academy Ruins, which also has the ability of put target artifact card from your graveyard on top of your library. And that is it, ladies and gents. If you liked the video, give the like button a click, subscribe if you would like, and if you have any suggestions, questions, or comments, you can leave them down below. You are appreciated, and we'll see you in the next video.